How's it going? It's Charles Botenston here in New York City, and today we're going to be reviewing a book that my brother gave to me actually over Christmas. And he gave me two books. Both of them I've wanted to actually read. One is Killing Patton, and this one, which is called Winning by Jack Welch. He was the GE CEO for many years in the 80s and in the 90s, and then he gave it up to Jeff Imlett in 2001, the day before 9/11. He gave it up 9/10/2001 to Jeff Imlett, and he's been the CEO since. So you've had some pretty big rock stars that have come in. So he's already written a biography, so this is not a biography. He goes around and he speaks to conferences, business conferences, and CEOs and executive conferences, and obviously he's paid for it because he has such a wealth of knowledge. And this book came out, as he mentions in it, because of all the questions he receives. It's a book based really on 9-to-5 people that have employment at a large corporation that are... I can't see this really working unless, there's incredible principles, but it's really a book based on acquisitions, mergers, playing politics. You have a bad boss, moving up in the organization, negotiating your salary, things that don't really come along with small businesses. I'm a small business. I own a small business. So though I did take some things out of it, one which is candor. He said you always have to be candor. He said, you got to be honest, you got to be direct. He said that's the number one thing that we're missing in today's business environment is that people aren't candor enough. So I took that to heart. I'm going to be definitely way more honest with my business dealings, a lot more honest and trite in what I'm asking for. I think I beat around the bush a lot, and a lot of people do. So he breaks it down to a lot of sections. And listen, if you're in corporate America, you need to read this book because he has incredible situations, things like how to influence, how to lead. What if you have a bad boss? What if you have a crisis that happens? And he explains in here a lot of situations that happened to him while he was at GE and how he handled it. And he talked about crises that are really bad for the company, PR-wise. And then you have crises that are really bad internally that you have to handle it, whether that's someone that's dishonest or integrity that's going on with... He also brings up hiring and firing. He said, firing, it has to happen. He said there's reasons for being fired. People that are the weakest link, he breaks it down out of 100%. He breaks it down to the top 20%, the middle 70%, and the bottom 10%. He said every year you want to get rid of the bottom 10% because the top 20% don't want to work around the bottom 10%. And the bottom 10% know they're going to get fired. They're just holding on for dear luck and their paychecks as their time dwindles on how long they're going to be at the firm. So he said you have to fire. He breaks it down like meta, and then he goes into the intricacies. So he starts at the company, leadership, hiring, people management, parting ways, change, crisis management. And he said his mantra, and he said you have to have a mantra, a personal one and a business that you believe in and that is in the future and what you're striving for, not what you've done or what you're doing. He said have the vision in the future, and you as the leader need to be able to explain that on a piece of paper, believe it, and implement it. Because there's one thing to write it on a piece of paper, which a lot of people just write their business venture on a piece of paper. It means nothing because they don't actually attest to it. They don't actually live by it. They don't breathe by it. So he said, you have to live for it, and it has to be in the future. It's not, we have sold 300,000 trinkets. He said, okay, that's great. You sold 300,000 trinkets. What are you striving for in the future? Are you looking to have higher quality trinkets? Are you looking to double your production? Are you looking to get into a different area? And he talks about getting into a different area. But going back to mantra, he said his GE mantra was to be number one or number two in every single industry that GE was in. And that's what he was implementing. And he said that the ones that were not going to be number one or number two, he got rid of. He axed, even if they were profitable. He said, if we're not going to be number one or number two, it doesn't really matter what number we are, because we're just staying alive. We're just staying alive. We're surviving. We're not thriving. And he said, when you hit number one, you always have to be going for more, because when you're looking in the rearview mirror at number two, that's when number two passes you. And he also did say something about competition. Never underestimate competition, because he said when he was building jet motors or jet engines for Boeing, Boeing came back and they said, we need it at 80,000 I think it's horsepower. I'm probably getting the numbers wrong, but he said we need it here, and it's going to take a certain amount of time, which means that he would have to sell it up here. Yet there was another one, another company, I forgot the name of it, that came in and did it in a faster time, which lowered their purchase price, which meant that GE, to be competitive, would have to lower their purchase price. Ironically enough, though they lost money on that initial engine when Boeing came out with the 777, which is the largest one that they have, GE was able to bump themselves up top, because they spent so much more time that to get to the next level really wasn't that much. But for the other company to get to the next level, it had to take them the time. So yes, never underestimate your competition, but always realize what your competitive advantage is if you do underestimate your competition. So GE took longer, but when they had to bump it up to the 777s that Boeing was now producing, they were able to hit that plateau faster than, I think it was Pratt. I forget what the name of it is. Then he talks about your competition, your secret sauce, reinventing the ritual. He said that deadly heat, other deadly sins, find it and you'll never work another. And he's talking about your career. This is actually a great lesson. Like, I found what I really love. But for folks that didn't, this is actually the right job, getting promoted, hard spots, work-life balance, which he goes almost 30 pages into, your work-life balance, which I believe in. I think it really depends on where you are at your life. I'm a single guy. I don't have a family, so it's a little bit different for me to have a work-life balance, because I don't have to go home by a certain time to pick up kids from school, or I don't have to have dinner with my wife because I don't have one. So it really depends where you are. And he mentioned, a lot of people ask him, how do you play so much golf? And he just, when he was at work, he worked. And when it was a weekend, yeah, he worked a little bit, but he shut off his phone. He said you have to do that every once in a while. And he ironically said that he doesn't play golf anymore. He used to play every single weekend. He doesn't play golf anymore, and he doesn't miss it. And the reason being is that, and this comes back to the work-life balance, is that he now finds a balance in teaching, talking, and educating and being a mentor. And that's really more important to him than playing golf. And he sees golf as a waste of time. I do too, unless it's, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, max. I used to play 4 or 5 times a week when I was in high school and in college, and I was really good. I made the golf team. I was a caddy for 8 years. But I just see it as, if I'm going to take all day to be on a golf course, yeah, it's fun, but I don't want to do that every weekend. I don't want that to be my outlet. I want more passion or some kind of thing outside of golf for me to look forward to. It is a hefty book. It's about 350 pages. I finished it quickly because it was more of a browse. I would recommend it if you're in corporate America. I would not recommend it if you're an entrepreneur like myself, or you're in a small business, because he really talks about big deals and going up the corporate ladder. In my company, going up the corporate ladder is really easy. In a small company of 50, it's going to be easier because there's not as much in between. When you have a 30,000 person company going up the corporate ladder, that's more significant. That's more where this comes in. So I would recommend it as a quick read. I give it 3.5 stars as an entrepreneur, 4 stars as a person that's in corporate America. It's called Winning by Jack Welch, and I guess he includes his wife, Susie Welch. But anyway, Book recommendations, let me know. I'm actually reading right now. I don't travel around with the book jacket on because people always ask me, what are you reading? So I always take the book jacket off, and it has this. So people are like, oh, what are you reading? Winning, and then they have questions about it and everything else. So I always take the book jacket off. But this next one is The Secret. I'm going to be done with this. This is going to be the next review. Follow me on Instagram. Subscribe to the videos. Recommend any books that you want me to read. Very honest with it. I read a book a week now. I have, you can see some back here. A new one just came in. The Way We're Working is Not Working, which is by Tony Schwartz, who wrote The Power of Engagement, which was an incredible book. I did a review on that. Anyway, subscribe to the videos, follow